The moment Queen Letizia adjusted her expression during that public appearance this week, I knew something was off. And no, I'm not talking about the outfit. Not the handshake. Not even the headlines people were obsessing over afterward. I'm talking about that split-second look she gave before the cameras moved away. It looked tired. Not physically tired, politically tired. And honestly, I think that one moment explains far more about the future of Spain's monarchy than most people realize. Because the conversation around Queen Letizia has quietly changed over the last year. At first, people admired her control. Then they respected her discipline. But now people are starting to ask a completely different question. What happens to Queen Letizia when Princess Leonor no longer needs protecting? That's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Because if you really think about it, the monarchy in Spain is slowly transitioning away from Letizia without officially announcing it. And once you notice that pattern, you can't unsee it. The camera focus, the military coverage, the emotional storytelling around Leonor. It's subtle, but it's happening. And I honestly think time is moving faster for Letizia than the palace expected. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Now before people misunderstand this, I'm not saying Queen Letizia is finished. Not even close. In fact, I think she's probably one of the smartest royal figures in Europe right now. And maybe that's exactly why this situation feels so fascinating. Because I genuinely believe Letizia understands what's happening before everyone else does. That's the difference. She knows monarchy today is no longer about hierarchy. It's about narrative momentum. And right now, that momentum is moving toward Leonor. Fast. Honestly, this reminds me a little of what happened with Princess Diana years ago, not in personality but in media gravity. At some point, the public narrative shifts to the younger figure. Not because the older generation failed, but because audiences become emotionally addicted to the future. That's human psychology. We're always looking ahead, and Leonor represents possibility, freshness, continuation. Meanwhile, Letizia represents something much harder. Maintenance, responsibility, institutional survival. That role is exhausting because nobody celebrates maintenance until it collapses. And if I'm being completely honest, I think Queen Letizia has spent years holding together an image that required near perfection. That pressure has to do something to a person eventually. Because unlike old-school royals who were born into these systems emotionally prepared, Letizia came from journalism. A completely different world, a world where questioning power mattered more than protecting it. And I think traces of that outsider mentality still exist in her today. That's why she's always felt slightly different from traditional royal figures. Sharper, more controlled, more aware of public optics. Almost too aware sometimes. And weirdly enough, that awareness became both her greatest strength and her biggest burden. Because once you understand media deeply, you also understand how temporary public affection can be. One bad narrative cycle changes everything. One scandal, one awkward family moment, one cold interaction caught on camera. Suddenly years of careful image building start shaking. And Spain's monarchy knows this better than almost anyone. That institution has already survived controversy, public distrust, and image disasters before. So now, when I watch the palace positioning Leonor more aggressively into public focus, I can't help thinking. Is this really about preparing Leonor? Or is it also about slowly reducing dependence on Letizia herself? That's the uncomfortable question, because if Leonor becomes globally popular enough, the monarchy no longer revolves emotionally around the queen. It evolves past her. And honestly, I think that transition has already started. Look at social media comments lately. People analyze Leonor's military training like it's a Netflix character arc. Every appearance trends. Every photo becomes symbolic. Meanwhile, Letizia's coverage has become quieter. Less emotional. More formal. That shift matters. Because in 2026, relevance isn't just about visibility anymore. It's about emotional investment. And younger audiences emotionally invest in progression stories. That's why creators like Mr. Beast dominate digital culture. Everything feels like evolution. Growth, momentum. Leonor's image fits that structure perfectly right now. While Queen Letizia, fairly or unfairly, represents stability instead of transformation. And the internet rewards transformation much more aggressively. But here's where my opinion gets a little controversial. I actually think Letizia may secretly be the reason Leonor's image works so well. Seriously, because discipline like that usually doesn't appear by accident. The composure, the restraint, the ability to handle pressure publicly at such a young age. That environment had to be shaped carefully behind the scenes. And honestly, I think Letizia deserves more credit for that than she gets. But that's also the tragedy of royal transitions. The generation doing the hardest emotional labor rarely gets rewarded publicly for it. They become bridges. Necessary, but temporary. And I wonder if Letizia feels that now. Not jealousy. I don't think it's jealousy at all. More like awareness. The awareness that history is already beginning to move toward the next chapter. You could actually see something similar happen in Britain. While Prince William and Kate Middleton still dominate globally, there's already growing fascination around Prince George's future role. That's how monarchy survives. It constantly trains audiences emotionally for succession long before succession officially arrives. And Spain is clearly doing that right now with Leonor. But the hidden cost: Queen Letizia slowly becomes less central to the story she helped stabilize. That's brutal if you think about it long enough. Especially because Letizia spent years rebuilding trust around the monarchy after periods of major controversy. People forget how difficult that job actually was. It's easy to inherit popularity. It's much harder to rebuild credibility. And honestly, I think she understood modern media far better than older royal institutions did. She knew optics mattered, body language mattered, timing mattered. That's probably why she became such a powerful figure despite entering royalty as an outsider. But now the system she helped modernize is evolving again. And evolution is ruthless. It doesn't pause for loyalty. It moves toward whatever creates emotional energy next. Right now, that's Leonor. And maybe the strangest part is that Letizia herself probably helped create this exact transition strategy. Because if you were smart enough to modernize the monarchy once, you'd also understand how to prepare it for the next generation. That's why I think these recent appearances feel emotionally complicated. People see polished royal events. I see a slow transfer of symbolic gravity happening in real time. And honestly, it's happening much faster than most people realize. Especially online. The internet compresses royal transitions now. What used to take 15 years can happen in 3. One viral moment changes perception overnight. One powerful image shifts emotional loyalty instantly. And Leonor's military narrative has become incredibly powerful. Visually, that matters more than people think. Because modern monarchy survives through imagery more than authority. That's the real truth nobody says directly. The symbolism is the institution now. And Leonor's symbolism is currently stronger, fresher, and more future-oriented than anyone else in the Spanish royal family. Even stronger than Letizia's. That doesn't erase Letizia's importance. But it does change her role permanently. And maybe that's why some recent appearances from Letizia have felt slightly different emotionally. Almost reflective, like someone aware they're entering another phase of public life. Not disappearing, just repositioning. And honestly, I think that transition is psychologically harder than people imagine. Because how do you spend years becoming one of the most scrutinized women in Europe, and then slowly accept that the spotlight is moving somewhere else? That's difficult in any industry. Hollywood, politics, even YouTube creators go through this. The audience always chases, what's next? And monarchy is no exception anymore. But here's the thing I keep coming back to. Maybe Queen Letizia's real legacy was never supposed to be her own popularity. Maybe her real achievement was making the monarchy emotionally survivable for Leonor's generation. That's bigger. And strangely enough, history often rewards those figures later. The stabilizers, the strategists, the people who carried institutions through dangerous transitions quietly. Not dramatically, quietly. And maybe that's why this current moment feels so important. Because we're watching the balance shift in real time. Not through scandals, not through official announcements, but through attention itself. And attention is power now. That's the modern monarchy game whether people admit it or not. The public decides emotional relevance daily. And right now, Spain's emotional focus is moving toward the future. Toward Leonor, which means Queen Letizia may already be entering the final phase of her most influential era, even while standing directly at the center of it. And honestly, I think she already knows.